She stood on my porch with a kitten in her mouth when I reached for the handle. I froze, let the door rest against the latch, and felt my dog press against my calf. The lynx looked straight at me, calm and sharp, as if measuring how much space I would give her. I backed up 2 steps, nudged Daisy into the hall, and clicked the bedroom door shut. My heart was loud. The rest of the yard was so quiet I could hear pine needles slide against each other. Yesterday, I had set a small tray of venison scraps near the edge of the trees. A friend had cleaned out his freezer and dropped the bag at my place. I did not set it by the porch. I walked it past the bird feeder and left it in the grass where the yard thins into the woods. I told myself it was a one-time thing. The trail camera caught a shape after dark, low and sure, the white ear tufts bright even in night mode. A lynx. I watched the clip 3 times and then twice more, torn between pride and doubt. Now she was here in daylight. The kitten hung from her mouth like a soft glove. She moved 1 step, placed a paw on the first plank, and stopped again. I did not lift my phone or knock on the glass. I stood still and let her do the deciding. She eased the kitten onto the boards, rested a paw beside the tiny rib cage, and breathed a low sound that was not a purr and not a hiss. It felt like a call. 2 small shapes rustled under the porch stairs. I whispered through the bedroom door for Daisy to stay. She did not bark, which was a gift. I took a breath, stepped away from the glass, and called the nearest wildlife rehabilitation center. A woman answered on the second ring. She introduced herself as Anna. I told her what I was looking at, the way the mother watched me, the way the boards creaked under the kitten. Anna listened without interrupting. Then she gave me simple rules. She said keep the dog inside with the door shut. She said do not open the door to the porch. Do not talk to the cats. If you want to help, place a small dish of water at the far edge of the porch once the cats step away. No milk. No cooked bones. No hand feeding. Keep all food smells out of the doorway. If weather turns bad, you can set an empty wooden crate under the porch roof so the floor stays dry, but do not line it with cloth. Let it smell like wood and air, not like a bedroom. Give them space to choose. She said this is important because wild mothers make their own plans, and we should not trap them in ours. I wrote the list on a sticky note and set it by the sink. Outside, the lynx pressed her nose to the kitten's head and made that same short sound. A second kitten crawled from the stairs, a fist of fuzz with bright eyes. The mother gathered them with her body, stood still for a long half-minute, and then looked toward the tree line. I could feel the line between us, thin as the glass, strong as a fence. The truck door next door slammed. My neighbor Tom started across the gravel. He had his cap pulled down and a worried set to his mouth. He saw the cats and raised both hands as if to wave them off. I cracked the front door, not the porch door, and stepped onto the steps. Tom says we should scare her off before she decides this porch is home. He says he has chickens to think about and a nervous wife. He says a warning shot into the air would send a message. I say please keep your voice down. I tell him I am on the phone with a rehab center, and they say we should not push her. I tell him the food is nowhere near the house, and I already moved the trash bins to the shed. I say the dog is inside and will stay there. Tom looks at the glass and lowers his hands. He asks how many kittens. I say I see 2 and I think there is 1 more under the stairs. He shakes his head and says he does not want trouble. I say me neither. I ask if he can keep his feed in sealed barrels for a while and keep his yard clean of scraps. He says he can do that. He says call if I need help. The afternoon sky dimmed fast. The pines shifted and the boards under the eaves creaked. Summer storms in these woods come with little warning. I called Anna again and told her the clouds looked heavy. She repeated the steps in a steady voice. Set the crate under the porch roof. Leave one side open toward the yard. No blankets. No food inside it. Move slow. I found an old wooden crate in the shed, the kind fruit comes in. I brushed out the dust with a stiff broom and carried it to the porch edge through the side gate, so I never had to open the glass door. The mother watched me the whole time. I kept my eyes on the crate and the boards at my feet. I set it where the rain would not reach and stepped back along the railing until I was out of sight. Wind moved through the trees in long waves. The first drops of rain ticked across the steps. The mother picked up the smallest kitten and carried it to the crate, set it down, and backed out again. She returned for the second one, then stood with her head low and ears high while the rain thickened. I could not see the third kitten, but I could hear a thin sound near the stairs. She found it and swept it up, and all at once the 4 bodies were inside. The mother crouched over them like a bridge. Daisy whined in the bedroom. I opened the door a hand's width and sat on the floor with her. I told her she was a good girl. She put her head on my knee and fell asleep the way dogs do when they trust the house to hold. The storm burned itself out in less than an hour. Gray light returned. The crate stayed dark and still. I kept the house quiet. Tom texted to ask if the cats were still here. I sent a single line and asked him to give it one night. After dark, the trail camera clicked. The mother stepped out of the crate, stretched, and moved to the yard edge. She paused where I had left water and drank. Then she went to the grass at the tree line and looked back. One by one, the kittens followed her, each with a wobble and a pause. She led them into the brush and out of the camera's view. Later, the camera caught only a shadow and 2 points of eyeshine passing through. At first light, the crate was empty. The boards had tiny prints on them, round and close. I sent Anna a message with a photo of the tracks. She called back and said this was a good sign. She said the mother likely used the crate as a dry step and moved the kittens to the shelter she had in mind all along. She told me to taper any food to almost nothing over the next few days and then stop. She said a wild family should not learn the path to a back door. I followed the plan. On the first day after the storm, I set a very small piece of meat near the tree line and watched from the window. No one came. On the second day, I set nothing. The yard felt big without the crate under the roof, so I carried it back to the shed. Tom swung by again in the afternoon with a cup of coffee. He said his wife had moved the chicken feed into sealed tubs and kept the hens in the run for a while. He said he had not heard anything in the night and asked if I felt strange about the silence. I said I did, but in a way that felt clean. He nodded and said maybe we all needed to get better at lids and latches and not leaving scraps out. He said his first thought had been to chase the cat, but he was glad we did not do that. I told him I almost did it too. We stood for a while without talking and watched a squirrel test the empty bird feeder, confused but healthy. That evening, I walked the yard with Daisy on a leash and checked the sand by the tree line. In the soft places between roots, I found a set of fresh tracks, smaller than my palm, heading away from the house. Daisy sniffed and then looked up at me, ears forward. We turned back. I pulled the curtains at dusk and left the house dark. A week later, I took down the trail camera. It had one more clip. The mother passed through at dawn, slim and quick, alone. She did not pause at the water pan or the place where food had been. She slipped between the pines and went on. I stood in my kitchen and watched the clip twice. There was nothing else to see, and that was the point. I called Anna to say thank you. She said I did fine and that most people do when they are given clear steps. She reminded me again to keep the dog indoors at night and the bin sealed, not because of the lynx, but because habits matter. I told her I would stick to that. She wished me a quiet summer and said to call only if an animal was injured. I kept the sticky note with her rules. It sits next to the light switch now. It is a checklist for calm. Do not panic. Do not feed by hand. Keep the door closed. Call the people who do this work every day. Let the wild stay wild. Some mornings I step onto the porch with coffee and listen. I do not expect to see the family again. The boards are empty and dry. The yard looks like any yard. But the edge of the woods holds a different weight for me now. I know there is room out there for a mother who knows her paths and the 3 small lives that walk behind her. If they pass by again, I will keep my place on my side of the glass and make sure the house is quiet. That is the help I can offer, and it is enough.